Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Six Path Weeb, and today we're diving into another exciting fanfiction scenario. What if Naruko commanded 6 legendary Pokémon instead of Kurama? This is part 2, where the story gets deeper, the stakes get higher, and the power dynamics completely shift. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer: the content on this channel is created purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used. Full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Now, let's get into it. Xerneas huffed quietly as he made his way down the path leading to the gates of Konohagakure. Beside him, Cresselia smiled apologetically, as if asking forgiveness for something unspoken. He sighed again while pulling a large wooden caravan filled with their belongings. Despite its size, it felt light to him. He glanced down at himself and sighed once more. Having only 2 feet was certainly an adjustment. "I don't think it's healthy to sigh so much, Xerneas," Cresselia said gently, her tone warm and caring. "Are you tired? Would you like me to pull the caravan?" For this journey, Arceus had given them human forms. Xerneas now appeared as a young man with neat bluish-black hair and deep blue eyes. He was tall, with a calm presence and a quiet strength. Cresselia, now called Yumi, had long blonde hair tied in a braid and soft purple eyes that seemed to glow kindly in the sunlight. "Somehow, Yumi, I feel like Arceus is smiling at us from afar," Xerneas murmured. "Anyway, I'm fine. And remember, my name here is Harutora Izumi." "Yes, I know," Yumi replied, smiling softly. "But you don't always have to do everything alone." They shared a light laugh and continued forward. Soon, they reached the great gates of the village. 2 shinobi greeted them and asked their purpose. "We're travelers," Harutora said politely. "We hope to settle here and contribute however we can." They were escorted to meet the Hokage, the leader of the village. Inside the office, the Hokage listened carefully as they introduced themselves. Then Yumi spoke gently, "We're also here because of a child. Naruko Uzumaki." The Hokage blinked in surprise. "Naruko?" "Yes," Harutora said kindly. "She has a bright heart. And she is not alone anymore." With a soft glow of light, both Xerneas and Cresselia briefly revealed their true forms, not in a frightening way, but in a peaceful, radiant manner. The room felt calm, almost like a quiet spring morning. "We are here to help," Cresselia said softly. "Naruko has been entrusted to our care. We wish to support her and see her grow happily." The Hokage, though surprised, could feel their sincerity. He nodded slowly. "Then, you are welcome here." The next morning. Naruko slowly opened her eyes, feeling something soft and wiggly bouncing on her. Her 4 little companions were happily hopping and giggling on top of her blanket. Instead of being upset, Naruko smiled. "Good morning," she said sleepily. "Ne-chan." One of them chirped happily, hugging her. Naruko sat up carefully, making sure none of them fell. "Why are you all dancing on me?" she asked, amused. "To wake you up," another one said proudly. Naruko laughed, a warm, bright sound. Even though mornings like this were chaotic, they made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt loved. "All right," she said, stretching. "Let's start the day." Her little companions cheered. Soon, they gathered in the living room, where Naruko pretended to be a big scary monster. The little ones squealed playfully and hid behind cushions arranged like a tiny fortress. Naruko couldn't help but laugh. Okay, she said gently. "The monster is gone now." They peeked out. "Really?" one asked. "Really?" They ran to her, hugging her tightly. "Breakfast?" Naruko suggested. "Ramen." They all cheered. Naruko grinned. "Of course." Meanwhile, in a quiet part of the village, Harutora and Yumi stood before their new home. It was bright, peaceful, and surrounded by a beautiful garden full of trees and flowers. "It's perfect," Yumi said softly. Harutora nodded. "Yes. It feels right." They both knew why they were truly here. Not just to live, but to build a home. A place where Naruko could laugh every morning, learn new things, and grow surrounded by kindness. Harutora looked at the garden, sunlight filtering through the leaves. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "this will become something truly special." Yumi smiled. And somewhere far away, Arceus watched over them, pleased. Naruko grumbled as she stood in front of the old Hokage in his office, rubbing her sleep-deprived eyes and stifling a yawn every few moments. She turned and glared at the Onbu agent standing right behind her. The Onbu known as Kat simply snickered behind her mask and waved cheerfully at the blonde girl, clearly enjoying the way Naruko's face turned red with annoyance, as if she might burst into a pout at any second. She was spared further teasing, however, when the Hokage spoke. "Naruko-chan," he began gently. "How have you been?" "Tired and sleepy," she grumbled. "Why are you even waking me up at?" She turned to look at the clock hanging on the wall, 6:30 in the morning. "I need my sleep," she complained. "And I still want to cuddle with my little siblings." The Hokage listened patiently. He had heard many curious things about Naruko's unusual little family. At first, people in the village had been confused and worried, but over time, he had come to understand that they were kind-hearted and meant no harm. In fact, they had brought something special and warm into Naruko's life. "Kat, please leave," he said. The Onbu agent gave a quick salute and disappeared in a swirl of motion. The room became quiet again. "Naruko, you're moving out." Fine by M." Naruko paused. Her sleepy expression vanished as her mind caught up with the words. "What?" she exclaimed. "Why would I need to leave? I'm doing just fine in my apartment." She didn't want to leave the cozy place she loved so much. It was small, but it was hers. The Hokage smiled kindly. "Trust me, you'll like this new place. Here's the address of the apartment you'll be staying in. And don't forget to be nice," he added with a knowing look. "Oh, and please deliver these as well." He handed her a small bag filled with scrolls. Naruko blinked, curiosity replacing her frustration. "These are for the people you'll be staying with," he explained. "They've been looking forward to meeting you." Naruko wasn't entirely sure what to expect, but she nodded. With a soft sigh and one last yawn, she turned and left the office. As she stepped outside into the morning light, she muttered, "This better be worth it." Naru-chan. Naruko had no idea what to expect when she arrived at the apartment building known as Izumi House. She had imagined cold stares or awkward silence. Maybe even being turned away. Instead, the door opened, and she was pulled into a warm hug. "EA?" Naruko blinked in surprise. "Do I know you?" The woman hugging her stepped back. She had long, light blonde hair tied in a braid and bright, gentle purple eyes. For a moment, she looked confused, then thoughtful, before smiling with a hint of apology. "Ah. It might be better if you come inside first," she said softly. Naruko hesitated, then stepped in. The house felt warm and welcoming, like a place filled with kindness. It made her shoulders relax without her even realizing it. The woman closed the door and turned back to her. "Do you think you remember me now, Naru-chan?" Naruko tilted her head. Then suddenly, everything changed. The woman's form shimmered softly, like moonlight on water. In her place stood a beautiful, glowing figure, graceful and serene. Naruko's eyes widened. "Kurama-chan?" she whispered. The figure smiled gently. "Long time no see, Naru-chan." Naruko's face slowly lit up with wonder. "And welcome," Kurama-chan said warmly, "to the Izumi House. Omake special, Halloween at Izumi House." Naruko tilted her head in confusion as she watched the busy scene in front of her. That morning, Harutura had received a large package filled with pumpkins, candles, and all sorts of unusual decorations. Now, he was carefully carving a cheerful face into one of the pumpkins, humming happily as he worked. Nearby, Yumi was equally busy. She had a pile of sweets and was attempting to bake something with the help of her floating companions. The last time she had cooked alone, things had gone very strangely. Since then, it had been decided, kindly but firmly, that she would always have help in the kitchen. Naruko stepped closer, curiosity bubbling over. "Haru-ni, what's with the pumpkin and the cake?" Harutura looked up and gave a sheepish smile. "Ah. I forgot to explain, didn't I?" he said. "Today is a special celebration called Halloween. It's a day where people dress up in fun and sometimes spooky costumes." "Spooky?" Naruko asked, blinking. "Well," he continued gently, "not really scary. It's more about imagination, pretending to be something magical or mysterious. People decorate pumpkins like this," he pointed to the carved face, "and share sweets with each other." Naruko's eyes sparkled. "So, it's about costumes and candy?" "Exactly," Harutura said with a grin. Naruko smiled brightly. "That sounds amazing." She looked around at the decorations, the warm lights, and her friends working together happily. For once, everything felt peaceful, cheerful, and full of wonder. "I'm definitely joining this," she declared. And as laughter filled the Izumi house, the evening promised to be one of warmth, friendship, and joyful imagination. "It's kind of symbolic, you see," Harutura said warmly. "We carve faces into pumpkins to decorate the house. We call them jack-o'-lanterns." He held up a pumpkin with a bright, cheerful grin carved into it. The tiny details made it look almost alive, as if it might start laughing at any moment. "Would you like to try?" Naruko carefully took a knife from the drawer and picked a pumpkin at random. She turned it around in her hands, studying its shape with curiosity. Just as she was about to begin, Harutura gently stopped her. "Let's make it interesting," he said with a playful smile. Soon, he called everyone who was free. Within a minute, the living room filled with laughter and chatter. Ryu, Shinku, Kuroro, Eri, Grovile, and Archon all gathered around, each eyeing the pumpkins with excitement. "All right, everyone," Harutura announced, clapping his hands. "Let's play a game." "A game?" Naruko asked, her eyes lighting up. "The jack-o'-lantern competition," Harutura declared. "You can work in groups, and each person may use one knife. You only get one pumpkin, so make it count. The judges will be the cooks in the kitchen, and the winner gets to choose tonight's dinner." "Ramen," Naruko, Shinku, and Ryu said together, their voices full of enthusiasm. "Curry," Kuroro and Eri chimed in, equally determined. "Chicken soup," Grovile added eagerly. Archon folded her wings and sighed. "This is silly. But fine. I vote for sushi." Harutura laughed. "Then let the competition begin." Naruko quickly gathered the younger ones and picked the biggest pumpkin she could find. She held her knife carefully, concentrating as she began carving. Her team leaned in close, offering ideas and giggling whenever the design took an unexpected turn. Across the room, Grovile and Archon worked on their own pumpkins, exchanging playful remarks as they carved. Kuroro struggled to drag a pumpkin into place, determined not to give up. Eri encouraged everyone, her cheerful voice adding to the lively atmosphere. The house soon filled with laughter, friendly chatter, and the soft scratching sounds of carving. Harutura stood back, watching the scene with a gentle smile. It felt like a perfect moment, everyone together, sharing joy and creativity. Naruko's pumpkin didn't turn out exactly as she had imagined. Its smile was a little uneven, and one eye was larger than the other. But when she looked at it, she couldn't help but laugh. "It's unique," she said proudly. Harutura quietly took pictures, capturing every moment, the laughter, the concentration, and the happy expressions on everyone's faces. When the judging was done, Grovile's pumpkin was declared the winner. She had carved a beautiful, detailed witch that seemed to glow softly in the candlelight. Everyone gathered around to admire it. "That's amazing," Naruko said sincerely, clapping for her friend. Grovile beamed with happiness, while the others joined in with smiles and kind words. Even though she didn't win, Naruko felt warm inside. It wasn't about the competition, it was about the fun they had together. As evening settled in and the pumpkins glowed softly around the house, the Izumi home felt brighter than ever. That Halloween, filled with laughter, friendship, and creativity, became a memory they would all treasure for a long time. Naruko stood in the quiet training field behind the Izumi estate, her feet planted firmly on the soft grass. She wore a simple black sleeveless shirt, comfortable training pants, and her shinobi sandals. The gentle breeze brushed past her golden hair, now a little longer and tied loosely at the back. Over the past few years, she had grown taller and stronger, but more importantly, she had grown happier. Living at the Izumi house had filled her days with warmth, laughter, and learning. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening carefully. A sudden rustle in the air made her move swiftly to the side. The ground where she had been standing puffed up with a burst of loose soil, scattering leaves into the air. When the dust settled, she saw Archaeops hovering nearby, her large wings flapping steadily as she cleared the space with a playful grin. "You're getting quicker, kiddo," Archaeops called out cheerfully, circling above. Naruko smiled, brushing a bit of dirt from her sleeve. "I've been practicing," she replied confidently. Archaeops swooped closer, not to strike, but to test Naruko's reflexes with swift, controlled movements. Naruko stepped lightly, dodging and turning, her movements becoming more fluid with each passing moment. It felt less like a fight and more like a lively dance between teacher and student. A nearby tree shook gently from the breeze of Archaeops's wings, and Naruko laughed. "Hey, that's my favorite napping tree." Archaeops chuckled. "Don't worry. We'll take care of it later." Just then, a soft glowing orb drifted toward Naruko and lightly bumped into her, making her stumble back onto the grass with a surprised laugh. Got you, Narune. Naruko sat up, rubbing her side gently. What was that? She asked, looking up with curiosity rather than annoyance. Shinku stood nearby, looking very proud of herself. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes sparkled with excitement. A new move, she said. Ryu and I worked on it together. Naruko turned her head and saw Ryu nearby, smiling brightly despite a small bump on her head. Naruko couldn't help but smile back. You two are getting really creative. Before she could say more, a small red blur swooped in and lifted Shinku into the air. You're wide open. Sora chirped playfully. Hey! Put me down. Shinku protested, flailing her arms, though there was no real fear in her voice, just mild embarrassment. Sora giggled, hovering just above. Say please. Naruko watched the scene with amusement, resting her chin on her hand. Please, Sora repeated slowly. Shinku sighed dramatically. Fine. Please. See? Easy, Sora said, before gently letting her down, though perhaps a bit more quickly than expected. Shinku landed with a soft thump on the grass and groaned. You did that on purpose. Maybe, Sora replied with a mischievous smile. Naruko stood up, stretching her arms and laughing warmly. Watching her little family interact like this filled her heart with joy. Training wasn't just about getting stronger, it was about growing together, supporting one another, and sharing moments like these. She looked around at all of them, her friends, her siblings, her home. All right, Naruko said with a bright grin, clapping her hands once. Let's try again. This time, I'm not going down so easily. The group gathered around her, full of energy and excitement, ready for more practice, but also for more laughter. Sora giggled when she noticed a tiny black speck on the ground. She wasn't worried at all. Shinku was many things: charismatic, leader-like, proud, strong, and most of all, incredibly durable. Yes, everything was perfectly fine. And down you go. Aerial ace. Sora called out playfully. A gentle but surprising gust from glowing wings nudged her downward, and she landed softly on the grass with a little oof. She blinked in surprise, then looked up to see the familiar reptilian face and the wide, tan and blue feathered wings of her rival. Hey! You old by-third! She called, though there was more laughter than anger in her voice. Archeops chuckled, flapping his wings lazily in the sky. You'll need a few more years to beat me, little one, he teased. Then, with a cheerful laugh, he soared toward the forest, eager to continue the friendly competition with the others. You might be wondering what all this excitement at the Izumi house is about. Well, it's part of a long-standing tradition called the Weekly Afternoon Challenge. Everyone who lives there, except for the caretakers, joins in friendly games and competitions. The last one standing wins a special reward, a whole week free from chores. There's also a daily practice hour where everyone can learn new skills and improve together, making sure they grow stronger and more confident each day. A rustling sound came from the trees nearby. Kuroro carefully climbed down from a branch, brushing leaves off himself after a rather energetic encounter with Grovyle. The grass-type Pokémon stood proudly on another branch, his leafy plume swaying in the breeze. You're improving quickly, amphibian, Grovyle said with a smirk. And you're still as strong as ever, reptile, Kuroro replied, smiling. Just as they were about to continue, a cheerful voice interrupted them. Wait! Let's make this more fun. A small black blur leapt out from the bushes, revealing Yoru, a tiny fox with reddish-tinted fur and bright blue eyes full of mischief. Yoru? Kuroro exclaimed. The trickster. Grovyle added. Me. Yoru chirped happily. His eyes sparkled as a soft, shimmering energy gathered around him. Let's try something new, illusion. A gentle wave of magic surrounded Kuroro and Grovyle, creating a playful sensory puzzle. For a moment, everything looked different, like a dream. Yoru wins. The little fox declared proudly, trotting away while humming a jaunty tune. But just then, a few harmless leaves fluttered toward him. Leaf blades. Grovyle called softly, guiding the leaves in a playful swirl. And here comes a surprise, bullet seed. He added, sending tiny, bouncing seeds that pop like confetti when they touch the ground. Ah. Okay, I'm sorry, Yoru laughed, dodging as best as he could. 00000. They certainly are lively, aren't they? Yumi said gently, sitting beside her husband on the porch as they watched the cheerful chaos unfold. Do they really dislike chores that much? She wondered aloud. I find them quite relaxing. Try doing Naruko's chores, and you might change your mind, Meowstic replied with a small sigh as he sipped his tea. Beside him, Lampent nodded in agreement. Naruko, with her bright spirit and boundless energy, was known for taking on more than anyone else, and somehow turning even the busiest tasks into something meaningful. She always used she/her pronouns, and everyone admired her determination and kindness. Ha! Looks like it's almost time to wrap up this week's challenge, Harutura said, nibbling on a cookie as he watched. By the way, how did we all end up with these nicknames? He added curiously, glancing at a little notebook in his hand. Why am I called a witch? Yumi asked dramatically, dabbing her eyes with a tissue she produced out of nowhere. I didn't know Cresselia could be this expressive, Harutura said with a grin. You learn something new every day, Harutura-sama, Lampent said wisely. Meowstic simply nodded, taking another calm sip of his tea as the warm, laughter-filled afternoon continued. Naruko swung her fist upward in a swift motion, landing a clean uppercut on Ryu's chin. The blonde girl winced slightly as her knuckles brushed against his rough scales, feeling a sting from his natural toughness. Even so, she stood her ground, determined and focused. Ryu tumbled back a few feet, shaking it off with surprising resilience. Naruko quickly reached into her pouch and tossed a handful of small training stars, but Ryu cleverly dove underground, avoiding them entirely. Oh no, Naruko exclaimed, looking around as she tried to sense where her little brother might appear next. Before she could react, Ryu popped up from below and bumped into her chin with a playful headbutt. The surprise sent Naruko stumbling back, but she regained her balance with a small laugh. Without hesitation, she dashed forward, engaging him in a friendly sparring match. She swept her foot low, hoping to catch him off guard, but Ryu hopped over it with ease. Thinking quickly, Naruko followed up with a gentle tap to his side, careful not to hurt him. Ryu wobbled for a moment, then stood up again, smiling. Big sis, want to see my special technique? He asked, tilting his head. Naruko grinned brightly. Only if you want to see mine too. They both took their stances. Naruko formed a sequence of hand signs with practiced focus, while Ryu gathered a glowing, colorful flame in his mouth. Dragon glow. Ryu called. Wind style, gentle gust. Naruko replied. A soft yet powerful breeze flowed from Naruko's hands, meeting Ryu's shimmering flame in mid-air. The two forces swirled together like a dance, neither overpowering the other at first. With one final clap of her hands, Naruko guided the breeze forward, gently pushing the glowing flame aside and sending Ryu rolling backward onto the grass. Oof, Ryu giggled as he landed, clearly more surprised than hurt. Naruko leaned against a nearby tree, catching her breath. She was still learning, after all, and using so much energy at once made her a little tired. Suddenly, she felt herself lightly pinned to the tree by a few leafy vines. She blinked in surprise and then heard a soft chuckle nearby. If you're not paying attention to your surroundings, you might miss something important, said Grovyle with a playful smile. Before Naruko could respond, a shadow swooped overhead. Archeops landed gracefully on a branch above them, wings slightly spread. Well. Looks like everyone's been busy, Archeops said with a cheerful grin. Mind if I join? Naruko laughed. Of course. Let's make it a team. Grovyle released the vines, and the three of them began a lively, friendly match, jumping, dodging, and working together in a playful rhythm. Archeops swooped low, Naruko dashed forward with quick steps, and Grovyle moved like the wind through the trees. After a while, Grovyle paused, looking thoughtful. I think I've used up all my energy for now, he said calmly. Naruko and Archeops looked at each other in surprise just as a whistle sounded in the distance. Time out, Grovyle announced, making a T-shape with her hands. Denied, Naruko said with a laugh, though she was clearly just as tired. Moments later, they all gathered together, smiling and catching their breath. Nearby, Harutura watched the group with amusement. A triple tie, she said, shaking her head with a warm smile. That's a rare outcome. Across the field, Eri wandered out from behind the trees, looking around in confusion. Wait. It's over already? She asked softly. Everyone turned toward her, and then burst into laughter. Harutura clapped her hands gently. Well, it seems we have an unexpected winner today. Eri blinked. Me? Yes, Harutura said kindly. Sometimes, just being patient leads to surprising results. Naruko walked over and placed a hand on Eri's shoulder, smiling brightly. Looks like you win this round. Eri's face lit up with joy, and soon everyone was laughing together under the warm sunlight. And just like that, their day of training ended, not with a single winner, but with shared smiles, new lessons, and the promise of even more fun tomorrow. Naruko crossed her arms with a small pout, her golden hair swaying as she spoke. Well, Grovile said she couldn't use her leaf bullets again and asked for a timeout, but we said no because it was just practice. Then we kept going. She tried some Pokémon-style taijutsu while Archeops used her steel wings. I used the moves you taught me and tried to keep up. It ended with Archeops tagging Grovile, Grovile tagging me, and me tagging Archeops. Harutura chuckled softly. That does sound lively. Archeops, please stop sharpening your claws on the furniture. We'd like to keep it in one piece. Archeops quickly tucked her claws behind her back and looked away, whistling as if nothing had happened. They were all gathered in the dining room now, where everyone's small bumps and scrapes from training were being gently cared for. Naruko sat still while her bandages were wrapped, trying not to notice the cool breeze drifting in through the open window. So, what do you think? She asked, tilting her head. Harutura closed his eyes thoughtfully before answering. Well, I think Shinku and Sora need to be more attentive. You must always be aware of your surroundings, even during practice. Kuroro, you should keep improving your illusion skills. Yorus are still quite simple, so it's a good place to learn. And Ryu, try to think before you act. Rushing in without a plan can cause problems. Everyone nodded together. Okay. And Eri, he added gently, try not to rely only on your emotion sensing ability. It's important to trust your own judgment too. Okay. Eri replied softly. Harutura smiled. And all of you should keep expanding your techniques and training with care. Yes, sir. They answered in unison. Soon, dinner was ready. Meowstick and Lampent carefully brought out the dishes. After a few earlier kitchen mishaps, like the mysterious time Yumi somehow burned boiling water, they had all agreed that only those two would handle cooking. Naruko wasn't much of a cook either. She could only make instant ramen. Ryu would happily eat anything, cooked or not. Shinku and Kuroro had a habit of sneaking snacks, while others simply preferred to stay far away from the kitchen. Everyone gathered around the long table as bowls of ramen, curry, sushi, and other delicious dishes were set down. By the way, Grovile said, turning to Naruko, who was happily slurping her ramen, tomorrow is your final test, right? Yeah, Naruko replied, still focused on her food. Why? Finish chewing before you talk, Grovile reminded her kindly. I just wanted to say, do your best. Naruko grinned. Of course. Ni-chan will ace the test, Shinku declared, waving her hands excitedly. She'll be the best in the class. You mean even better than Uchiha-san? Harutura asked with a small smile. Naruko shrugged. We're more like rivals. But yeah. I'll give it my all. Do your best, Harutura encouraged. You can do it. Yoru added. We believe in you. The others chimed in. Naruko smiled warmly. Thanks, everyone. Then, as if a sudden thought had popped into her mind, she turned to Harutura and Yumi. Hey, Haruto ni, Yumi Nichan. Why don't you have a baby yet? Aren't married couples supposed to have one? Harutura nearly dropped his spoon in surprise, his face turning bright red. Yumi quickly covered her face with her sleeve, equally flustered. Who told you that, Naruko? She asked gently. Naruko pointed across the table. Archeops. All eyes turned to Archeops, who immediately tried to sneak out of the room. Yumi gave her a firm but gentle look and used her psychic ability to guide Archeops back to her seat. Archeops, she said kindly but seriously, you must be careful about what you explain to others. I was just trying to help, Archeops mumbled. The room grew quiet for a moment, then Lampent spoke up in a light, cheerful tone. Well, maybe one day it will happen naturally. Yumi's face turned pink again. Ah, look at the time. Good night, everyone, she said quickly, standing up and heading out of the room. Harutura rubbed the back of his neck with a shy smile. Good night, everyone. As the room settled into a calm and cozy silence, Naruko leaned back in her chair, feeling warm and happy inside. Tomorrow was her big test, but with everyone cheering her on, she felt ready for anything. The next morning, Naruko rubbed her sleep-deprived eyes as she looked at the slightly flustered and tired-looking couple in the room. Grovile, Archeops, Meowstick, and Lampent seemed to be watching them with knowing smiles, as if they were sharing a cheerful secret. Every now and then, They chuckled softly, making the couple blush even more. "What's going on this morning?" Naruko asked curiously. "And what was that strange noise last night? I couldn't sleep," she added, still a bit groggy. "Oh, it's nothing you need to worry about," Archeops said with a playful grin. "Just one of those things." Naruko tilted her head but decided not to press further. If they didn't want to explain, it probably wasn't important. Suppressing a yawn, she plopped down on a chair in the dining room and poured herself a bowl of cereal and milk, though a little messily. Taking a sip, she sighed in relief as the cool drink helped wake her up. Soon enough, she finished her milk and moved on to her cereal just as her younger siblings wandered in. "Ohio." She greeted them sleepily. They responded with soft groans and mumbled greetings, clearly not morning people either. After breakfast, the 7 of them shuffled together into the bathroom, moving so slowly that the older residents couldn't help but laugh. Their sleepy coordination made them look like a group of drowsy dancers. But after one lively and slightly chaotic bath, they came out refreshed, alert, and ready for the day. "So, who wants to join me in class today?" Naruko asked. One by one, her siblings shared their plans and headed off, until only Kuroro and Yoru remained. Naruko smiled, gently picking them up and placing them on her shoulders, where they settled comfortably. "Itadakimasu," she called out. Her siblings echoed her farewell a moment later. 00000. At the academy, Naruko sat in her usual corner, with Yoru and Kuroro beside her. Ever since she had moved into Izumi House, Harutura and Yumi had been helping her with her shinobi studies, teaching her patiently whenever they had time. Thanks to their guidance and her determination, Naruko had improved greatly. She was no longer at the bottom of the class. Now, she stood confidently alongside her classmates through her own effort. "Oi! Shika, Choji," she greeted with a bright smile. "Morning, Naruko, Yoru, and Kuroro," Choji replied warmly, snacking as usual. "Troublesome blonde," Shikamaru added lazily, which was his usual way of greeting. The 3 friends chatted quietly about the upcoming test until a loud tapping sound echoed through the building. The class grew quiet, anticipating the familiar daily commotion. Shikamaru calmly handed out earplugs to his friends and began counting down. 3, 2, 1. With a dramatic bang, the door swung open, and Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka entered, immediately launching into a loud but harmless argument about who had arrived first. "All right, take your seats," Iruka called as he entered with Mizuki, both carrying stacks of papers. Naruko carefully returned Yoru and Kuroro to their Pokeballs for safekeeping and tucked them into her pouch. "We'll begin with the written test," Iruka announced. As Naruko took her paper, she noticed something unusual, like a faint shimmer across the page. It reminded her of Yoru's illusion techniques. Realizing what it might be, she focused her chakra calmly, clearing her mind. The strange effect faded, and the real questions became clear. Naruko smiled softly and began writing with confidence. Before long, she finished and placed her paper down neatly. Iruka gave her an approving nod from the front of the class, and Naruko felt a quiet sense of pride. 00000. After everyone completed the test, the class moved outside for a practice session. It was a chance to demonstrate their skills in a safe and friendly environment. One by one, students stepped forward to practice with Mizuki under Iruka's supervision. When it was Naruko's turn, she stepped up calmly. "Uzumaki Naruko," Iruka called. She took her stance, one she had carefully developed with guidance from Grovile and Harutura. It was balanced, steady, and uniquely her own. Mizuki observed her thoughtfully. "That's not the standard academy stance," he noted. "It's one I've practiced myself," Naruko replied politely. Iruka nodded. "That's perfectly fine. Begin when ready." The practice started, and Naruko moved with focus and control. She avoided her partner's movements with agility and responded with careful, measured techniques. It wasn't about winning, it was about learning, improving, and doing her best. After a few moments, Iruka blew his whistle. "That's enough. Well done, Naruko." Naruko stepped back, smiling brightly. She felt stronger, more confident, and ready to keep growing. It was going to be a good day. They moved on to the weapons test soon after. In the practice field they had used before, Iruka set up training targets made from bundled yarn. Each one had bright red circles drawn on the head, chest, stomach, and other spots to help the students aim carefully. "All right, let's begin." Naruko tuned out the chatter around her and focused on her own thoughts. She watched the other students with quiet curiosity, noting their scores and techniques. It was clear to her that some of them were especially skilled, while others were still learning their way. Uzumaki Naruko. Hearing her name, she stepped forward and took her place. She held her practice tools steady and faced the targets with determination. Taking a breath, she aimed and threw her first kunai toward the center of a target's head, but just before it reached, the target shifted slightly, causing her throw to miss by a small margin. Naruko blinked in surprise. The other targets had stayed still. So why did hers move? She glanced to the side and noticed Mizuki, whose hands shimmered faintly, with nearly invisible chakra threads attached to the targets. Understanding what was happening, Naruko felt a flicker of frustration, but she quickly steadied herself. Calm down, she told herself. Focus. She slowed her breathing and centered her thoughts. Fixing her gaze on the targets, she imagined her throws landing exactly where she wanted them to. With renewed focus, she released her kunai one after another. 7 out of 9 hit their marks. A small smile appeared on her face. Not perfect, but a strong effort. 0-0-0-0-0-0. Later, Naruko sat quietly, her confidence wavering a little. The ninjutsu portion of the test always made her nervous. It wasn't that she couldn't perform techniques, in fact, she knew quite a few and had practiced them diligently. But there was one in particular that always gave her trouble. The Bunshin Jutsu. No matter how hard she tried, it never worked the way it should. It had already caused her to struggle in the past, and now, once again, it stood between her and passing the exam. She slumped slightly in her seat, feeling a bit discouraged. Still, she shook her head gently. No shortcuts, she reminded herself. I'll do this honestly. Uzumaki Naruko. Hearing her name again, she straightened her shoulders and walked into the examination room. The door closed softly behind her as she stepped forward. All right, Naruko, Iruka said kindly. Let's begin with henge. Nodding, Naruko formed the hand signs and transformed into Iruka himself, complete with his tied-up hair and facial features. The resemblance was so precise that Iruka smiled in approval before asking her to release the technique. With a soft puff of smoke, she returned to her original form. Next, Kawarimi. Naruko quickly formed the hand signs again. In an instant, she switched places with a nearby chair, reappearing at the back of the room. She repeated the technique smoothly, returning to the center. Iruka nodded, clearly pleased with her progress. Good work, he said warmly. Now, the final test, Bunshin. Naruko swallowed nervously. This was the moment she had been worried about. Taking a deep breath, she focused as hard as she could and formed the signs. Bunshin no Jutsu. A puff of smoke filled the room, and 3 copies of Naruko appeared beside her. However, they looked pale, unsteady, and not quite right. Naruko's heart sank. Iruka's expression softened. He hesitated for a moment, clearly wanting to encourage her, but he had to be fair. I'm sorry, Naruko, he said gently. You didn't pass this part. Naruko lowered her gaze, disappointed, but she stayed quiet, holding on to the hope that she would improve and try again. Across the room, Mizuki watched silently, a small, knowing smile on his face. And so? Naruko sat alone on her usual spot by the swings beneath the tall tree, gently rocking back and forth. Around her, other children laughed happily as their parents congratulated them on graduating from the academy and becoming Genin of Konoha. Naruko watched quietly, her bright eyes dimmed with disappointment. She didn't call out to Yoru and Kuroro. She didn't want them to see her sadness. A soft voice broke her thoughts. Hey, Naruko. She looked up to see Mizuki-sensei standing nearby with a calm smile. I have some good news for you, he said. Your score was very close to passing. We've decided to give you another chance to prove yourself. Naruko's eyes widened with hope. Really? Mizuki nodded. There's a special test. You need to retrieve a scroll from the Hokage Tower, learn a technique from it, and bring it to this spot. He showed her a small map pointing to a quiet forest clearing. If you succeed, you'll pass. Naruko stood up at once, determination shining through her earlier sadness. I'll do it, she said. I'll prove I can become a ninja. Mizuki smiled and walked away. And so, with a hopeful heart, Naruko set off on her challenge. 0-0-0-0-0. Night arrived, and Naruko carefully made her way toward the Hokage Tower. Yoru and Kuroro stayed close by her side, helping her stay hidden and focused. With quiet steps and a racing heart, Naruko found the room Mizuki had described. Inside, she discovered a large scroll. It looked important, and she gently picked it up. "I found it," she whispered. Just as she turned to leave, she bumped into someone. "Naruko?" She froze. It was the Hokage. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Then she gave a sheepish smile. "Sorry, Ji-chan. I'll explain later." Before he could respond, she hurried off with her friends. 000000. They reached the forest clearing and sat together on a sturdy tree branch. Carefully, Naruko opened the scroll. Her eyes lit up as she read. There are so many techniques. One caught her attention, the Shadow Clone Jutsu. "I want to learn this one," she said. With patience and determination, Naruko practiced again and again. At first, it didn't work. But she didn't give up. Finally, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Several copies of Naruko appeared beside her, smiling just as brightly as she did. "I did it!" she cheered. Yoru clapped excitedly. "Now chores will be way easier." Kuroro sighed, though a small smile showed he was impressed. Suddenly, they heard footsteps. "Naruko!" Iruka-sensei rushed into the clearing, looking worried. "Naruko, do you know what you've done?" he asked. Naruko tilted her head. "Mizuki-sensei told me this was a test. Wasn't it?" Iruka's expression changed, understanding dawning on his face. "Wait. Mizuki?" Before he could say more, another voice echoed through the trees. "So you figured it out?" Mizuki stepped forward. Naruko looked between them, confused. But Iruka quickly moved in front of her. "Stay behind me," he said gently. Naruko's heart pounded. Something wasn't right. Iruka turned back to her with a kind smile. "Naruko, listen carefully. You are not defined by what others say. You are your own person, kind, determined, and full of potential." Naruko blinked, surprised. "Really?" Iruka nodded. "I've always believed in you." Those words filled Naruko with warmth and courage. She stepped forward, her voice steady now. "I don't need tricks or shortcuts," she said. "I'll become a ninja my own way." With her clones beside her, she stood tall, not to fight, but to prove her growth and strength of spirit. Seeing her resolve, Mizuki faltered. Soon after, the situation was brought under control, and peace returned to the quiet forest. 000000. Later, Naruko sat beside Iruka, who smiled proudly at her. "Close your eyes," he said. She did. A moment later, she felt something placed gently on her forehead. "Okay, open them." Naruko reached up and touched it, a ninja headband. Her eyes widened. "Iruka-sensei?" "Congratulations, Naruko," he said warmly. "You've graduated." Tears filled her eyes, but this time, they were tears of joy. Yoru and Kuroro cheered beside her. Naruko smiled brightly, her heart full. "Thank you." 000000. Back home, Yumi and Harutora watched Naruko resting peacefully after her long day. "She's grown so much," Yumi said softly. Harutora nodded. And as Naruko slept, her dream was simple and bright. A future where she would become a great ninja, not because of any test, but because she never gave up on herself. "I hope she can cope well with the news," Harutora said quietly. "Well, let's leave her to her sleep," he added with a gentle yawn. He turned toward the door, Yumi walking beside him. But just as they were about to step out, they both paused. They turned back and saw Naruko's small hand clutching the sleeves of their clothes. Her bright eyes shimmered with tears, and she sniffled softly. "What's the matter, Naruko?" Harutora asked in a kind voice. Naruko hesitated, her voice trembling. I'm the holder of the Jinchuriki. I know you must hate me now, but can I still stay here with you, please?" she asked, curling deeper into her blanket and pillow. Harutora's expression softened into a warm smile. He gently ruffled her golden hair. "So that's why you've been so quiet since you came home," he said. "We don't hate you, Naruko. Even if you carried every tailed spirit in the world, we still wouldn't hate you." He tucked the blanket around her more snugly. "Now, try to rest, little one." With that, Harutora and Yumi quietly stepped out and dimmed the light. But before they could go far, Naruko's soft voice called out again. "Where are you going?" she asked. Her mind filled with old memories, of empty rooms, quiet nights, and the feeling of being alone. Those thoughts made her heart ache, and her fears grew stronger. Where are you going? She repeated, her voice smaller this time. Why am I always alone? Yumi gently turned back and walked into the room again, gesturing for Harutura to follow. She knelt beside Naruko and wrapped her in a warm, comforting hug. You're not alone, Naruko-chan, Yumi whispered kindly. Instead of asking, where are you going? You can say, please stay here with me. Naruko blinked in surprise. Her eyes widened as she thought about those words. Slowly, she tightened her arms around them, holding on as if she never wanted to let go. Please stay here, she said softly. Harutura and Yumi shared a gentle smile. Of course, they replied. They settled down beside her on the futon, Naruko resting safely between them. The room felt warmer now, filled with quiet comfort. Oyazuminasai, Naruko, Yumi whispered, placing a soft kiss on her forehead. Sleep well, little champ, Harutura added, holding her gently. Naruko's eyes grew heavy as a peaceful feeling wrapped around her. Good night. Ni-san. Ne-chan, she murmured. And for the first time in a long while, Naruko drifted into sleep without fear, surrounded by warmth, kindness, and the reassuring presence of those who cared for her. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you for your support. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.